Hey, welcome to another episode of Retirement Made Easy. On today's episode, I wanted to talk about a question I get over and over again. People will say, hey, I've got $1 million saved, I'm 65. How much can I spend in retirement? How long will my money last? What's my retirement gonna look like? And so I wanted to go over an illustration, just a hypothetical. This typical couple that's 65 years old, has saved $1 million, is ready to retire, but they don't know how it's going to play out. And so I thought we would go through this example together. I think you could really learn about putting a retirement plan together to see visually how it looks. And you'll see kind of the starter plan and where a lot of people kind of just stop. They say, okay, this is good enough for me. But a lot of times they're missing a lot of the details that really should be included in a retirement plan. And they really move the needle one direction or the other, because you want to have a customized retirement plan to your life, the retirement that you envision, not somebody else's, to yours. So let's go ahead. I'm going to share my screen here and we'll jump into it. So this is this hypothetical couple, 65 years old, John and Jane retired. You can see born in 1959. So that makes their full retirement age 66 and 10 months. And so John and Jane both retiring this year and are saying, what do we think we can live on in retirement month in and month out? They look at their current bills and they say, how about $7,000 a month? So you'll notice that's $7,000 a month is $84,000 a year. And so then they look at, okay, where's this income going to come from? They look at their fixed income sources first, which is what a lot of people do. And they say, okay, John's Social Security benefit is a little higher. At his full retirement age, which is 66 and 10 months, it's $3,000 a month. And then Jane's, we're assuming that Jane didn't have the earnings history that John did. Maybe she helped raise the kids and was out of the workforce, and maybe was a homemaker for a number of years. And so her Social Security benefit is just not on par with John's because of her earnings history. So we're going to assume that she has the spousal benefit at full retirement age, which is 50%. It's one half of what John's $3,000 a month is. So she would receive $1,500 a month. So together with his $3,000, her $1,500 a month, they're looking at $4,500 a month coming in from their Social Security checks. But we're assuming that's not going to start for 2 years until their full retirement age, or almost 2 years, if they retire at 65. Going on down, we're going to assume they have got no pensions. So John doesn't have a pension and neither does Jane. So pensions, we're assuming none. Then let's look at their savings. And so right here, which is the biggest piece of the pie when it comes to their retirement nest egg, is John's pre-tax 401k, which is very common, by the way, from all the people that we meet at my firm. We run into people that have the majority of their assets in the pre-tax 401k. And it might be an IRA from a previous employer. So that's what John has, $700,000 in his pre-tax 401k. Below that, they've both got Roth IRAs for both John and Jane, worth $100,000. And then Jane had an old 401k that she rolled into a rollover IRA and invested it there. And that's $50,000. And then they've got an emergency fund, like in a checking account, worth $50,000. So adding up all of those different accounts, their liquid net worth is what we call it, or their nest egg, their total value of their nest egg is $1 million down here. So going into retirement with $1 million, they want to know, hey, can we make this work? We think we kind of know how much we want to spend. How long will our money last? So I'll show you on my next screen. This is their plan. So starting at the top left here, 65 and R means retirement. Highlight that. They want to live on $7,000 a month. Remember, they had estimated, hey, that's what they think their bills are going to be or continue to be. And $7,000 a month is $84,000 a year. Now, for the first 2 years of retirement, they're not going to have Social Security checks coming in. So in the first year of retirement, that entire $84,000 has to come out of their nest egg. And so over here, the top right, that is their nest egg value, starting with $1 million, and then it goes down gradually as they spend through it in retirement. So you'll notice in the start of year 3, we're going to assume, since their full retirement age is 66 and 10 months, let's just round that for simplicity to age 67 is when their Social Security checks kick in. Now, those Social Security checks, they are subject to taxes. They will likely be. And so we account for taxes and assume an after-tax amount for John, $32,359 and $16,180, which is exactly half of John's, coming from Jane's Social Security. So then the shortfall is $40,576 that is withdrawn from their nest egg to help complement or supplement their Social Security income. What you'll notice here on the far left, they're assuming, well, we know there's going to be cost of living in retirement. Inflation is what we call it, right? The purchasing power of a dollar goes down over time. So they have assumed, just an easy calculation, every year, everything they buy costs more, and they assume 3%. So by the time they pass away at 92, instead of living on $7,000 a month, which is $84,000 a year, they're living on $186,569. And again, that's assuming a 3% compounding inflation for all of those years. They're also assuming that their Social Security checks get a raise, and you can see every year their Social Security checks go up for both of them. So what are they missing here? They kind of see, okay, our money lasts with this plan, and this assumes their nest egg is growing at 6%, other than their checking account, which they assume is growing at 0. But everything other than their emergency fund is growing at a 6% compounding rate. And they can see, hey, their money lasts until age 90. And I have a lot of people that would say, well, that's good enough for me. Maybe my parents lived until their mid-80s. So if we make it to 92, hey, that's good enough for me. So this plan is typically where a lot of people like a simple plan, but then they stop here. And they're missing a lot of elements or a lot of variables. When it comes to retirement planning, they just forget to include them as expenses in their retirement plan. And your retirement plan doesn't have to be overly complicated. This is a good starter plan, but again, there's elements that you're going to want to have, because this is not going to be how it's going to play out. There's key pieces that they need to include. So what are they missing? You might be looking at this plan and saying, well, it actually looks pretty good. It's pretty straightforward. Their expenses are going up every single year, fixed expenses. What could possibly be missing? If they don't have pensions, they don't plan on working part-time, so there's no other income coming in, how could this plan be better? Well, a couple things. Number one, living on $7,000 a month with fixed expenses here, that's okay, fixed expenses. But I think what we find over time, it's a better idea. It's going to be more customized to you to also include other expenses other than your fixed expenses. And what do I mean by other expenses? Healthcare expenses is the big one, because if John and Jane are on Medicare, once they're 65, they're probably not thinking about, okay, what is a Medicare supplement plan or a Part D plan for drug? What's that going to cost us every single month as far as a monthly premium? That needs to be accounted for. And they probably didn't think, because when they were working, they may have been covered from group health insurance, and the premiums for that group health insurance come right out of your paycheck. So you don't really think about it. It's out of sight, out of mind as far as the cost of healthcare. Flip the page into retirement, and it's a totally different story. Not only are you going to want to probably look at a Medicare Advantage or a Medicare supplement plan, and if it's a supplement plan, maybe Medicare Part D for drug if you're on prescriptions, but also your Medicare Part B they're forgetting. When I turn the page back, we look at their Social Security benefits. John's is predicted to be $3,000 a month, and that's what's on his Social Security statement. and Jane will get half of that. 1,500 will be what she receives. But they won't actually receive that. And why, you might be thinking? Well, you've got to take into account the Medicare Part B premium. Once they're 65, we're assuming they're going to jump on Medicare. In 2024, that starts at $174, $175 per month. So John he won't receive $3,000. He'll get about $175 a month, less than that. And then same for Jane. Instead of $1,500 a month, she will receive, if my math is right, about $1,325 a month. And that's not even including if they want to withhold for taxes, for federal income taxes. So a lot of people overestimate what their Social Security income is going to be, because they forget about Medicare Part B. And again, if they assume, hey, we're going to get Medicare supplement plans, Medicare Part D for drug on top of that, well, that's an other expense from the time they're 65 until the time they're 92. They're going to need to include those healthcare expenses because they're going to be vitally important. And typically, Medicare premiums, healthcare expenses, they tend to go up over time. If you look at the statistics, they go up more than general inflation. So instead of maybe a 2 or 3% inflation adjustment, maybe it needs to be 5% or higher. Like we've seen historically. The other thing is they didn't build in a travel or a vacation budget. And so typically people will say, hey, we would like a budget, at least for the first 10 or 15 years of retirement, when we want to be the most active. We really need to include some type of travel budget into our retirement plan. And that's going to be different for everybody. It might not be an allowance, a travel allowance every single year. It might be every couple years, depending on what your goals and wishes are. But that's another thing they're kind of forgetting is, hey, they don't really have a travel allowance in here. The other thing is, how are they going to plan for new vehicle purchases? They don't have that accounted for in here at all. This assumes that, there's never a time when they don't need, 20 grand to go buy a new car, or $30,000 or $40,000 to upgrade their vehicle. So, and they're 65, I find it hard to believe that their car is going to last between 65 and 92. I would think that at some time they're going to need to upgrade a vehicle, whether that's every 5 years or 10 years or whatever their purchasing habits are. So they need to account for new vehicle purchases as well. And the other thing, now there's many, many more expenses that we could put in here depending on their goals and their desires in retirement, but home improvements and remodeling projects. This plan kind of assumes that between 65 and 92 that they stay in the same home and never do any home improvements or remodeling or updating a kitchen or a bathroom. And so those expenses, home improvements, if anybody's a homeowner out there, they know how much of a money pit they can be over the years as things wear out, as things need to be improved or replaced or remodeled. So that's another big line item that we're not accounting for in here in this simple retirement plan that I think they really, really should. So at a very, very basic level, certainly a fixed amount every single month, that's $7,000. That's great. But don't forget about all the goals and wishes and the bucket list items that you have. And those things are going to cost money. And certainly we need to account for them. That can really, really true up a retirement plan and customize it to the point where you're at like the pro level or the expert level. So I encourage you not to stop at just a basic plan like this, like I see so many people doing, and just saying, hey, I'm just going to live on fixed expenses and forgetting about all these other costs that and they may be kind of irregular costs, like a new vehicle purchase every 5 or 10 years, but they need to be accounted for because the price of vehicles, for example, is only going to keep going up and up and up over time. The price of traveling and going on vacation, it seems like it's getting more and more expensive as the days go on. So I would encourage you to account for all these expenses Believe me, once you get into retirement, you'll be glad you did. And the other thing that I'll mention is a lot of people in retirement, they go into retirement thinking, okay, let's say $7,000 a month. We can live comfortably on that. But they've never really been retired before. And what they find is they get into retirement and every day is a Saturday. And maybe they eat out more, and maybe they go shopping more. And I think to myself and my own family's buying habits, and I would say it's fair to say we spend more on Saturdays and Sundays than we do during the work week. So when you think about retirement, every day is a Saturday. Do you think you're going to spend more in retirement or less, given that fact? So that's another thing to keep in mind. And then one last thing is other income. So we're not assuming any part-time income. If you've listened to the podcast, Retirement Made Easy podcast, you know I'm a big proponent of part-time income in retirement for many different reasons, even other than the extra cash flow. There are many benefits to part-time income, not only for people physically and mentally and financially, certainly, but that's not included in their plan. And I think a lot of people would be happier being semi-retired. And I've talked about that on my podcast on numerous occasions. So I hope this is a good starting point for you. And so you can really see somebody with $1 million at 65, really what's their spending going to be like? What can they afford to spend? And a couple other things that I wanted to mention before I end this episode is this plan and any retirement projections are going to be based on assumptions. They have assumed, for example, that their nest egg grows by 6% compound interest every single year. And we all know that that's probably not going to be the case. The market's up, the market's down, interest rates are up, interest rates are down. A lot of things that can impact the performance of your portfolio, your nest egg of retirement savings. And I think, at least what we do at my firm, is we kind of start off on the most conservative and then we build up because we're trying to see what is the average rate of return you're going to need from your retirement savings, your investments, to have a positive outcome in retirement. What is the minimum, just the base case? And if you get greater than that, that's fantastic. But what is the minimum average rate of return that you need to have a successful outcome? If you can figure that out and run different scenarios, again, that's kind of stress testing your overall plan. And that's a crucial piece of information that can greatly benefit you. And the other assumptions, as far as this plan is concerned, is, inflation. We don't know what inflation is going to be the next 30 years as we approach retirement. So we have to kind of make some estimates, guesstimates or assumptions. And the other thing, we don't know what taxes are going to be in the future. So we have to make some assumptions there. If you ask a room full of people, do you think taxes are going to be higher or lower in the future? In my opinion, most people will probably say taxes are probably going to be higher in the future. So that needs to be accounted for in your plan in case taxes do increase. So a lot of different variables and things to assume. And if you forget them, if you forget to include these key elements in your plan, you might find that your plan has some weaknesses down the road and some things that maybe you didn't account for or expect. They might be a pitfall to your overall retirement plan. Hey, I hope today's episode has been helpful. Please remember to like and subscribe, and you'll get more videos just like this one. And if you want to learn more about how we help people plan for a successful retirement, visit our website, stlouisfinancialadvisor.com. I'll see you on the next episode.